Hi, this is Amy from Boardgame Blitz, and I'm currently on vacation in Taiwan. And you know what you do on vacation? Visit board game stores.
Jay from the YouTube channel Cardboard East had told me about a couple board game stores in Taipei, but me being the person who visited 8 board game stores while in Japan for a week, decided to search for even more stores to go to. Turns out there are a lot of board game shops in Taipei. But this time, I was on vacation with my 4-year-old twin, so unfortunately walking around in the Taiwan heat and humidity, even when it's cloudy, to visit all of them was out of the question. I did manage to go to Sunny Board Game one afternoon with my kids for our first Taiwanese board game store experience. I soon came to learn that most board game shops here are more like board game cafes. They have tables and libraries for playing games and board game meetups, which is neat, but I guess no meetups on a weekday afternoon. The person working here actually spoke English and was very helpful. I was wondering if I could get Pokemon Splendor since Taiwan is closer to Korea than the US is, but turns out it's hard to find everywhere. But the clerk called another store for us, bghut, which he said he personally likes, and told us we could get it there, but it's expensive. He even wrote down a note to give to the people at that store. That store was about a 15-minute walk away though, so with kids wanting to go home, we didn't go. But I did see a copy of one of my favorite games, Tragedy Looper. I looked it up later, and I think it was the 10th anniversary expansion called Tragedy Looper Ray. Another day, we tried to go to a store after lunch, but we tried going right at opening time according to Google Maps, and it didn't open. So we went to a nearby playground for a few minutes to placate the kids and then went home. We kept doing things close to board game stores, but not close enough to walk there with tired kids. So soon it was over a week into our vacation, and we'd only been to one board game store. But then we finally managed to go to another one, Sherlock Board Game Store. This one had some neat thematic decorations to go with the name. They had pricing for playing games, and they even had some kids games to play. We didn't stay to play, but we did buy a game called Speed Cups for our kids. Since we weren't going to many board game stores with our kids, we ended up going to some at night without kids. Don't worry, we had grandparents watching them while they slept. But one night we went to 2 mall-type buildings right next to each other, Guang Digital Plaza, an electronics mall, and Syntrend, a shopping mall with all types of things. There was a board game store in the 3rd floor of the electronics mall. Maybe it was just a section because I think there were books and video games in the other part of the store, but there were some games, including Patchwork Formosa Edition and Cora Quest. No playing space though in this one. And on the 7th floor of Syntrend was a Swan Panasia Games, which seems like it might be a chain of stores. It was a small space in a mall, but still had a table and some games for playing. I kept wanting to try to go to bghut since that one was recommended by both Jay and the worker at Sunny Board Game, but it was a little too far to walk with kids from the places we went. But one morning we went to the National Taiwan Museum, which was only a 5-minute walk away, so I was hoping we could go after lunch. Unfortunately, my kids get hungry early, so we were done with lunch a little after noon, but the store didn't open until 1, so we weren't able to go. This was a common theme of our trip since my kids usually need to take a break after lunch, so it's harder to go out in the afternoons when all the board game stores are open. We then tried to walk to a board game store close to where we were staying. I looked up and found out that JOOL Boardgame Club was apparently a store with a good selection, and it was just a 15-minute walk away. So one afternoon, we decided to try walking with the kids in the stroller, with a break for snack and a playground halfway there. But during our break, there was a sudden downpour, while the weather app said it wasn't raining. Seems like the world really didn't want me visiting board game stores. After the downpour stopped, the kids wanted to go home, so we didn't make it to the store. As consolation, we went to a mall with toy and jigsaw puzzle stores. That was fun. There was also a bookstore called eslite that seems like Barnes & Noble. There were a bunch of board games out front, including Cora Quest, and we bought one called Mini City since I had heard of it on Cardboard East. Anyway, if you can't tell, it turns out to fully experience a board game shop, we had to go at night when my kids were asleep. Jay had also told me that Grow Life Cafe has a foreigner meetup on Thursdays, so we went to check it out with a friend. The worker told us she didn't know much about the meetup other than it was a bunch of foreigners. She thought you need to sign up for the meetup ahead of time, so we ended up getting a normal table and playing some games ourselves. Later, we found out we could have just joined the meetup, but as introverts and with a non-foreigner friend, having our own table was fine. It was a nice place, lots of games to play and a lot of table space. We were in a private type room in the back that even had some video games in there. We stayed a couple hours and played 6 games: Bubble King, Splendor, Ghost Blitz 2, King Domino, Anomia, and In Front of the Elevators. The next night we went to a night market, but I searched and saw there was a board game shop the street over, so we walked over to check it out. We didn't go inside though since we didn't want to take off our shoes, but it looked like a nice space and there were a lot of people playing games. But this definitely was not a store and was just a cafe, and it reinforced the idea I was getting that a lot of the board game places that showed up on Google Maps aren't stores, but more like board game cafes. Our time in Taiwan was nearing a close, and we still hadn't been to bghut or JOOL Boardgame Club, the 2 places that were mentioned as stores with good selection when I looked it up on Reddit. So the night before our last day, when our kids were asleep, we decided to finally walk over to JOOL, and we brought an umbrella this time. After a 15-minute walk, we made it to the store and it was open! There was a wall of games for sale that we took our time looking through. They also had some accessories and some Warhammer stuff, and they had a big table where people were playing some miniatures game. The store was smaller than we expected after reading reviews that it had a large selection, but I thought the selection was pretty good for the size of the store. We bought a couple games that looked interesting. Infiltraitors is a cooperative deduction game I heard about from Cardboard East that Pandasaurus will be bringing to the US, but we thought it'd be cool to get it early. And there was a game based on a Taiwanese painting that we found out is called The Glorious South on BGG. It looks like a Where's Waldo type party and children's game, and we like that it's Taiwanese, so we got it. So that was it for our board game adventures in Taiwan. We unfortunately never made it to Board Game Hut while they were open. Maybe next time. But we did manage to visit some stores, see some gaming, and buy some games. Hope you enjoyed my Taipei board game vlog. Check out my other videos and subscribe for more board game stuff. For more Taiwan stuff, you can support us on Ko-fi to see other things we did on our trip. And if you're interested in hearing about the games we bought, I'll probably talk about them on our podcast once I play them. Thanks for watching Board Game Blitz!